and welcome to the Royal Record here on GB News. I'm Cameron Walker, GB News' Royal Correspondent.
And I'm Svar Nanan-Sen, Royal Editor of gbnews.com.
And we've got a lot coming up for you on today's show. First of all, we're going to be talking about how Prince William and Catherine appear to be doing a new strategy. They're wanting to appoint a new private secretary specifically focused on Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland.
And we'll be taking a look at William's potential trip to South Africa later this year and whether the Princess of Wales could join him there.
And as doctors give the green light for the King and Queen to visit Australia and Samoa, we'll be giving you all the details we know so far. So far, the Prince and Princess of Wales has had a pretty difficult year even. I think it's fair to say that, with the Princess's major abdominal surgery and, of course, her cancer diagnosis as well. But they appear to be very much planning for the future now, not perhaps as Prince and Princess of Wales, but maybe a little bit looking even further into the future as future King and Queen. Because I had an exclusive this week on the gbnews.com website revealing that they are looking for a new private secretary, assistant private secretary, to specifically focus on the home nation, so Northern Ireland, Wales and Scotland, but even more of a focus on Wales in their role as Prince and Princess of Wales. And they want somebody who speaks fluent Welsh, who is very heavily a big expert really in Welsh communities and the government of that country and the issues that really matter to them. And I think it's really interesting that they're starting to go down that path and realizing, perhaps as two mainly English people who are very privileged, they need a bit of help.
Yeah. Well, there is a little bit of animosity in some communities towards the Prince and Princess of Wales. The political party Plaid Cymru has came out and said that their titles have no formal place or responsibility within Welsh life. So I think this is a really smart move to try and smooth that relationship over with some parts of Wales and to kind of bring in a new age as the Prince and Princess of Wales. We know William is not planning to have an investiture ceremony as the Prince of Wales, which is probably a smart move. But,
I mean, even his father in 1969 got a lot of protests in 1969 by having a ceremony, and I don't think William wants to put himself through that somehow.
Exactly. So we're already seeing William and Catherine make some really smart moves, and I think this is just another step in the right direction.
Well, it's kind of like a strategy, isn't it? And a royal source told me when William took on the title of Prince of Wales that he had started to learn Welsh. His first kind of big engagement post the royal mourning period was to Swansea, I believe, and Cardiff, somewhere in Wales, with the princess at the time. That was in 2022. They want to, I'm told, deepen the trust and respect and understanding of the Prince and Princess of Wales. But I was told all of that in 2022. We're now 2 years down the line. And okay, they want to take things at their own pace. As we mentioned at the start, they've had a very difficult year. But it looks like they're starting to really drive forward this. And this new appointment of an assistant private secretary appears to be their way of doing things. From memory, I don't remember Prince Charles, the then Prince Charles, having this role created specifically to try and deepen and the understanding and trust and respect of the people of Wales. But he's got he or she, whoever gets this job, has got a pretty difficult task, because he or she has to write specific advice for the Prince and Princess, report kind of directly to them. If William and Catherine wants to give him a particular task or her a particular task, they're going to have to do that. So it's going to be really interesting to see if this appointment's made and then what they do with it.
Yeah, I think this is part of a long-term strategy for Catherine and William. This might be planning for years, if not decades ahead. You know, there will be a day when Prince George will become the Prince of Wales too. So this may be something that they're looking to put infrastructure in place, not just for them to benefit from, but also for Prince George as well.
I think it's important to bear in mind that this is only a kind of job advert. They're actively looking, because it wasn't that long ago, I think it was February this year, where they kind of canned plans to look for a chief executive in Kensington Palace, reportedly. So they're looking for a chief executive to run the entire household, which hasn't been done before. Again, being quite modern, usually a royal household is run by the private secretaries. And this chief executive would be above the private secretaries and reporting directly into William and Catherine. And that's been scrapped. I think perhaps at the time, the excuse that was given was that, they've got a lot to worry about because the Princess of Wales at the time was recovering from major abdominal surgery. But then this is yet another appointment, which is this one going to actually come to fruition? And then the question is, what difference is it actually going to make? But it does come back to this point that it looks like William and Catherine are really trying to win over support to those communities across the country who perhaps have more indifference to the British monarchy, or perhaps are quite hostile to the British monarchy. As you said, the Plaid Cymru, what they thought of the Prince of Wales title, a few minutes ago. So I think William and Catherine are aware that not everybody in Britain is a huge supporter of the British monarchy, and perhaps they need to do something about it.
Yeah, and I think you can see that with the fact that this role will encompass Northern Ireland and Scotland as well.
Yeah,
it's not just Wales, and it's not just the animosity within Welsh communities that they're targeting. They want to boost support through Northern Ireland and Scotland as well.
Yeah, it's the home nations, isn't it? And not just kind of focusing too much on England.
Yeah.
And I think, we do see Prince William kind of not jet off literally. Maybe he'll get a helicopter, who knows, go off to Wales and do various engagements. They've been to Aberfan, where that famously in the 21st of October, 66, I think it was, that school was flattened, the primary school, and killed a lot of pupils with the coal slurry. And since then, the royal family has had quite a strong relationship with that particular mining community. The late Queen went on a number of occasions, so did the then Prince Charles, and William and Catherine, now as the Prince and Princess of Wales, has also gone back. And we've also had, not to bring it too much into politics, but we've had a big general election just now. And the King and Queen very recently went to the Welsh Senedd to celebrate the 25th anniversary of that kind of devolved government. So you can see a real push from the British royal family, both Charles and Camilla and William and Catherine, to really keep a foothold in Wales.
Yeah. And recently King Charles and Camilla have announced plans to go to Australia and Samoa and conduct some engagements within Commonwealth nations.
Yeah, they certainly have. There was a bit of a hoo-ha as to whether or not they'd be going. There were very, very strong rumours that there would be an autumn tour to Australia and New Zealand and Samoa, because the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting is happening for the first time during King Charles's reign. So that's happening October 2024, 21st to the 25th of October in Samoa. We're expecting the Prime Minister Keir Starmer to also go to that. And there was also always a question mark as to whether King Charles would make the journey following his cancer diagnosis. He, of course, is head of a Commonwealth. We know that he very much would like to be there. But finally, the doctors have given the green light. And if you're going all the way to Samoa, and I've looked, it's a very long way. It's like 36 hours, because we're trying to see whether we can go out as part of GB News and bring you the latest coverage. It's very close to, relatively close to Australia and New Zealand as well. But what Buckingham Palace, in consultation with the New Zealand and British governments and Australian governments, is that he and the Queen will only do Australia, and keeping it very much to the Capital Territory and New South Wales. No New Zealand, and that's on doctor's advice, because we need to be mindful of the facts. King's still going through cancer treatment, which I think sometimes we forget, right?
Yeah, and it's going to be a huge journey, and it's going to put him under a lot of stress anyway, getting over to Samoa and Australia.
Not that it'll be an economy.
No. So I think it's a smart move to limit it. I'm sure the public in New Zealand is upset to miss out on seeing the King and Queen. We saw politicians from New Zealand recently lobbying for the King to come and saying they can be as flexible as possible. So I think it is a disappointment for New Zealand, but we have to take the positives, and it'll be fantastic to see him undertake a tour of Australia and Samoa.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a very, not scaled back tour, I think that's the wrong word, but it's going to be quite limited of what he can do, as I understand it. So on a usual state visit, and I've accompanied the King and Queen on a couple now, they would usually do like 7 or 8 engagements a day. And it's exhausting for us, let alone 2 people in their 70s. And that's not happening, as I understand it, this time. I think it is going to be quite limited, perhaps not as many engagements a day, and maybe some rest days in there as well. We don't have exact dates yet, but I suspect it's not going to be a 3-4 week long tour of Australia and then going on to Samoa. I think it's going to be much, much shorter. But the other thing I think we need to point out about this whole Australia visit is that it was only in January that the Australian government shelved plans for a referendum on whether or not the country should be a republic. And one of the reasons that the monarchy or the king or queen or whoever will go on a visit to one of the realms or territories is to try and drum up and shore up support for the monarchy. So it will be interesting to see how they recede. We already know that there's protest plans, a Republican protest planned.
Yeah, we had Graham Smith, the head of Republic, on the podcast a month ago now.
Yeah, it certainly did.
And, he told us an exclusive at the time that they were planning to fly out to Australia to protest against King Charles during his engagement there. So, yeah, there are protests. There are protests planned. I don't think that will necessarily detract away from the overall feel-good feeling of Charles being in Australia, being in Samoa, and seeing him undertake, which is surely going to be an iconic royal tour.
Yeah, and I think when they fly over to Samoa, I think you're going to really see King Charles's passions come out. I think one of the reasons Samoa has been chosen is because it's quite a low-lying island in the Pacific. And of course, with climate change, sea levels rise. Are we going to lose some of Samoa? And getting all the Commonwealth heads of government, 56 or so nations, together in one place, talking about common challenges, common issues. King Charles, big advocate for protecting the planet. I think that's something we're going to see him really champion and highlight and spotlight. So I can see why he is so determined to go there. And it'll be interesting to see if his stamina, having just done a week in Australia, will be the same in Samoa to allow that passion to come out.
Yeah, I think he will have consulted his doctors, and they probably feel they'll have enough energy to and stamina to do Samoa, and that's why New Zealand was seen as a push too far. But with the king and queen's reign so far, the state visits to other countries have been a real highlight. His one to Germany, his one to France in particular. There was some really sweet moments with Emmanuel Macron and Brigitte Macron.
Yeah.
And even his trip to Jersey and Guernsey a couple of weeks ago. Some absolutely lovely moments. We saw how the population there came out in their hundreds and thousands to see Camilla and the King and pass on their support and love for them. So these international tours, they've been some of the highlights of his reign, and I think the Australia and the Samoa one, because of its scale and all the work that's going into it, I think it's has the potential to be really special.
And the British monarchy and particularly King Charles and Camilla is a real asset for the British government, British Foreign Office. It's the power of soft diplomacy that we see the royals deploy around the world, and that's why the British government sends them on a royal tour to shore up relations with different nations. So by going to Australia, perhaps it will improve relations between the Australian and the British governments. Will there be a new trade deal? Will there be more opportunities for young people to do exchanges across the two nations? It's things like that which the royal family can really perhaps help the British government or the Australian government kind of muster. So yes, watch this space. We'll of course bring you up to date on that particular trip, which I'm very excited about. But what we've also seen over the last few weeks is the Princess Royal starting to come back from public engagements, or on public engagements in a gradual way, following her incident with a horse. We don't know exactly what happened, but medics are guessing that she was either kicked or headbutted by a horse. That's what they said, something along those lines. We know she has concussion and minor injuries, but we saw her back out and about. And William and Catherine called her a trooper as well.
Yeah. Princess Anne returned as almost like it was business as usual. Nothing had happened, and I think that's the way she'd have wanted it to be. Just keeping calm and carrying on. and she would have wanted as little fuss as possible
Yeah.
about it. You mentioned that Kate and William sent a message to Anne. They called her a trooper and said it was great to see her back at work. And apparently Princess Anne was unaware that was going to happen, and she wasn't consulted by it. And Kate and William just did it without informing her. So yeah, it was a lovely gesture from William and Kate, but I think it also summed up Anne, that she'd want as little fuss as possible around a return and just wanted to get on with it.
But doesn't that just show the like lovely relationship that Prince William and Catherine has with Prince William's aunt, Princess Anne, and just how members of the working royal family, it's quite slimmed down one now, are really kind of rallying around each other, supporting each other. And I think when Anne was out of action, when the Princess of Wales was out of action, and the King, because of various health matters, we did see members of the royal family rallying around each other. Prince William hosting the garden party at Buckingham Palace in the pouring rain, as seems to be happening all summer here in London with all the rain. He has the younger generations of the royals in an informal capacity helping out, including Princess Beatrice and Eugenie.
Yeah, and just before we touch on Beatrice and Eugenie, I think it's important to speak about just how much the absence of Anne could have left a gap for the royal family. We know that she's the hardest working royal in terms of engagements every single year.
Yeah.
She had the title last year, and even with this 2-week break, she may still end up doing the most engagements if her health allows. And a few weeks ago, we asked our GB News members, does Princess Anne's absence show the royals are unprepared for a streamlined monarchy? 64% said yes, 32% said no, and 4% said they did not know. So the overwhelming feeling from our members and our viewers was that Princess Anne is still such an important part of the royal family, and there's not quite a succession plan there if Anne was to step away.
Yeah, and also I think it shows that I think the British public really care, but also at some point, and I'm sure Prince William is thinking about this, who is going to replace these people? Because a lot of the working royals are elderly or close to retirement age. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, Prince Louis are obviously the obvious choices, but they are still very young. So it's going to be, realistically, it's going to be at least a decade until they're doing, full-time royal duties, if at all.
Yeah, more for George and Charlotte, maybe a decade more for Louis and Charlotte, maybe a decade for George, but even in 10 years' time, Louis would just be 16.
Yeah, but I just don't see a situation where we're going to have Princess Beatrice, Eugenie, Zara, and the rest of them becoming working members of the royal family. I don't think they'd want to. They've got their own lives, they've got their own jobs, they've got their own children, and it's for scrutiny they'd be put under if they did so. The kind of, they're not half in, half out, because obviously you're not allowed to do that, as Harry and Meghan found out during that Sandringham summit with the late Queen. You can't be half in, half out. But they kind of got, I think those younger generations like Zara, Mike, Beatrice, Eugenie, etc., they have all the perks without any of the restraints. So they get to go to Ascot, they get to attend a garden party if they're asked, they get to sometimes go to a state banquet, but they don't have to carry out those, they don't have to carry out those, let's say, slightly less glamorous engagements. They don't have the public scrutiny because they are not funded by the taxpayer. They pay their own way. So it's kind of good for them at the moment. Why would they change it?
Yeah, and you speak about them going to Ascot, also Wimbledon. Beatrice went to Wimbledon and was seen in the royal box.
Nice.
Chatting with Stephen Fry. Something that really caught my attention with that, though, is when Zara Tindall went to Wimbledon this year, she chose not to stay in the royal box. Instead, went in sponsored seats for Rolex, who are a sponsor of Wimbledon and part of her partnership with them. So I think that sums it up, that there are perks to it that they get without being working royals, where they can just freely enter into these brand ambassador roles as well. It's not a bad life.
Yeah, commercial deals, I suppose. Well, of course, they do have to be very careful with commercial deals, as some members of the royal family have found out. But also, I think they're kind of, obviously we know, and I'm sure some big royal fans will know who Zara or Mike is, but I think some of the general public probably wouldn't recognise them if they walked past them on the street, whereas I would say a vast majority of people on the planet would recognise the King, Queen, William and Catherine.
Yeah.
So it's, we'll see what happens with that one, if any of the working royals step up to the plate.
And we've talked about the potential tour for Camilla and Charles, But we've not yet spoke about the fact William could be over to Cape Town later this year as part of the Earthshot Awards.
Yeah, so the Prince William's Earthshot Prize, his decade-long drive to find solutions to repair the planet over the next 10 years. So it's £1 million prize for 5 winners. There's 5 categories. And you're going to test me now. Let's see if I can remember them. Repair our oceans, or revive our oceans, clean our air, fix our climate, and then there's 2 others as well. So we'll put them on the website.
Maybe a C grade.
Maybe a C grade.
Yeah.
Okay, apologies to Prince William. The point being, he's coming up with, or finding all these people around the world who are coming up with these amazing, innovative solutions to repair the planet. And Prince William's whole idea with this is action and scaling up. So these small companies with amazing ideas. So for example, Notpla, who won the Revive Our Oceans category in 2022, or not Revive Our Oceans, sorry, Build a Waste-Free World. There we go. There's another category.
Well, up to a B now.
Thank you, thank you. So instead of plastic, they found a way to make a plastic-like substance out of seaweed, which is therefore biodegradable, doesn't clog up the oceans or anything like that. And Prince William was very impressed by that. But now it's been scaled up because of the funding it's got from the Earthshot Prize. And the containers that they have made, food containers they've made, is now being sold in stadiums across the country and food and music venues across the country, which is reducing by tons the amount of plastic that's ending up in the ocean. So it's those kind of things.
Yeah.
And a long way of saying it, but Prince William's going to Cape Town this year for the next set of prize winners.
Yeah, there was some uncertainty around whether he would go due to Catherine's health, but we've seen him undertake a few overseas trips now, 3 to watch England across Euro 2024. And with Kate undertaking now a couple of public appearances, it feels safer to say that William will be there. In terms of the Princess of Wales, no confirmation.
Yeah, I mean, Kensington Palace haven't even confirmed yet that Prince William's going, but I would be so surprised if he doesn't go to Cape Town, because it is his prize and he's been to every single one so far. Yeah. The Princess of Wales, even before her abdominal surgery and cancer diagnosis, I would say is a question mark. Because last year she didn't go to Singapore with Prince William, which was last year's prize. The reason I was given was because she was helping Prince George with his entrance exams for Eton and other various colleges. So there's still a question mark whether she'll go. I think it's more likely that William will go. Whether the Princess of Wales goes as well, we'll have to wait and see. But of course, Cape Town is in South Africa, and the last major royals who visited South Africa was Harry and Meghan in 2018. So will there be some kind of a comparison between those two feuding royal couples as well?
Yeah, that is a really interesting point. And Meghan and Harry's tour of South Africa was really well received, and by all accounts went very well. So it's not going to be a pressure for Kate and William, because it's a completely different thing. As you said, Catherine may not even go, but it's just a looming possibility that there could be a comparison between William's Earthshot Awards and Harry and Meghan's engagements there.
Yeah, maybe a little bit, but I think I just know that Prince William's absolute focus is going to be very much on Earthshot, so I would be surprised if there was other engagements around and about. Although if you're going all the way to South Africa, maybe he'll tag on some conservation work off the back, because of course he's very heavily involved in wildlife conservation and tackling the poacher trade. United for Wildlife, a cause which he set up to kind of bring people around the world together to fight the illegal wildlife trade. And it's had some good results with convictions in the US and things like that, in terms of ivory and things like that. So perhaps he'll do a bit of conservation while he's out there, because I can't remember the last time he went to Africa. I think it was a while ago. But yes, hopefully we'll see Prince William in South Africa in November. We know it's November. We don't have dates yet. As soon as we do, I can guarantee you, Svar will put it on the GB News website. That's it for this week on The Royal Record. Thank you so much for watching or listening.
And don't forget, you can keep up to date with the latest royal news and analysis by signing up to the GB News Royal Newsletter.
Until next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.